we're getting equality all wrong. We're getting inequality all wrong.
Mm.
Like, that's the message. And there are words in the Bible
Yeah.
that were twisted
Yeah.
that got us here.
Yeah.
And you're setting the record straight.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Trying
water
to.
that down with bullshit,
Yeah.
because that's a really important message.
They're harmed by the language that gets used from the pulpit and from churches because it's used uncritically. It doesn't address what is real in this world, and it never touches the idea of equality, of this, right? It just says, nope, there's a hierarchy. You're less than me because I can pick you up with one arm. It's trash. It's frightening. And it ultimately contributes to the hurt that women experience. And that's not God's design. And it's not right. Welcome to the Whisper and Flame podcast. My name's Michael.
And I'm Jen. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
No, I don't know. You're playing with. I think it looks great.
Okay, great.
I think you're having a good hair day.
I think you're having a good hair day.
Why, thank you.
Is that a good compliment for a woman to hear?
That you're having, yeah, absolutely.
You're having a good hair day today. Then my fear is that they will go, what about every other day?
Oh, we absolutely will. Absolutely.
So compliments are laced with landmines.
Yes.
So maybe this is why we don't do it, because it's scary. And we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Maybe.
Yeah, I can see that point of view, but also please compliment us, but also be prepared for the landmine.
To be hurt.
Yeah. No, this is such a stereotypical thing. I feel like we're treading on.
Right. So it's not
thin
every,
ice.
it can't talk about landmines. It's not every person, right? Not every man is the same as the sort of stereotypical picture of a man. Not every woman is the same as the stereotypical picture of a woman.
Sure.
We can agree with that. That makes sense because you meet real people in real life and people are pretty much approachable, kind, normal, commonsensical. But the stereotypes of men and women would lead you to believe something very different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you just confirmed anecdotally that if I say you're having a wonderful hair day, you go, gee, thanks, I really needed that. But also, what about yesterday and what about what happens tomorrow?
I will speak for myself.
Okay.
I will speak for myself and say there are some stereotypical traits.
Yeah.
A lot of which gets pretty heated sometimes in the online community.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be interesting if you could share the biblical perspective on men and women, masculinity, femininity.
Sure.
And kind of the roots of the intention behind God's design.
So people are already turning off right now.
That's fine.
Because there is so much baggage with how the church has used what is masculine, what is feminine, and then applied it uncritically to just kind of everybody, right? But when we look at Scripture, we actually see a much, much more encouraging picture of both sexes and how those sexes interrelate than we ever have been told from the pulpit. So I think really beautifully, Genesis starts with this statement about humanity from a place of equality. It just flat out does. When God creates humans, the book of Genesis chapter 1 says, so God created mankind in his own image. Male and female, he created them. So he's using a singular to say mankind, a singular word, all one thing. And then mankind gets separated, broken into two halves of one whole. He created them in the image of God. And then that line gets further explained. So you're going from broad to specific when it says God creates humanity in his own image, male and female, he created them, right? So stunningly, beautifully, The very beginning of Scripture, the very beginning of our story, says, you and I are both created to reflect like a mirror into the world God himself. And the reason why this is beautiful and the reason why this is actually shocking is because in the ancient world, the only people who were the image of a god were kings. And they were all dudes, right? So it's a shocking thing for this ancient society to come up with an idea that no, actually, it isn't just royalty that reflect the image of God. It's not some deified king running a nation. It's every man and every woman who are reflecting the image of the Creator and his grace and his love out into the world. It's mind-blowing, and we skip right past it because we don't.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't see things that way.
I've read that a million times,
Yeah.
and I never connected those two things, nor did I consider the historical perspective of how that idea was just so revolutionary.
Because women
for
were
the
treated
time.
like property. I mean, at best, you're kind of property. At worst, you're a slave. You're chattel. You're less than what men are in that society. Not that society, but in that day and age, with all the surrounding societies. That is not what is true about you, according to them. But God comes in and says, no, check this out. Women are just as important to me as men are. This is where we get our modern idea of equality anyway. It's the Judeo-Christian idea of equality. And it was shocking and stunning in that day and age, and it lasts to today because it's good, it's right, it's beautiful, and it makes sense. You're no better or worse than me. I'm no better or worse than you. And the problem is that this, especially Genesis 2 and 3, have been really weaponized to kind of continue controlling women or holding you guys down and keeping you in your place by the men who are in charge.
But doesn't that contradict there's another Bible verse about women being submissive to men?
Yeah,
Women submit to your wives? Or what? Let me try that one again. That's not what it says.
Wives submit to your husbands.
Wives submit to your husbands.
Yeah, that's in Ephesians 5. And Paul is explicitly riffing on Genesis 2 in that letter. So the first 3 chapters of Genesis mixed with Ephesians 5 is kind of where we get our modern idea of headship, meaning like men are the authority, men are at the top, women are just below men. And basically Paul in Ephesians is riffing on Genesis 2, and the crux of his argument is that Adam was first and then Eve came from him, right? So the head of the family, the head of the wife, is the husband, as the head of the church is Christ. But the word that he uses for head or headship, it really means like headwaters or source. So it's like the woman is sourced from the man.
That's different.
As the church is sourced from Jesus.
That's
right?
different than like the head of leading a superior kind of.
Sure. And like we're mixing a couple of things, right? Like we're talking about a role, leadership versus whatever women are described as in Genesis, versus ontologically what's happening as well. God forms man from the dust of the ground, which is what the word man means, by the way. It means earth, human, humus, earth, Adam. And from his side is taken a piece of him, forming the woman. And so the crux of Paul's argument is, I think partially at least ontological, saying like man is the source of woman, as Christ is the source of the church. And what was his role? He gave himself up for her, which is really beautiful, right? And as we all submit to the authority of Jesus, wives submit to your husbands. But also, men die for your wives. Like, there is a mutual submission. It goes both ways. Because I think Ephesians 5:1, before you ever get to this, Paul is saying, be imitators of Christ and submit to one another. Which again is a really beautiful mutual thing, and it echoes Genesis 1. We are standing in equality with each other. But Genesis 2 goes on and delineates roles. It starts to talk about just different ways that God equips us to have healthy relationships and to interact well, right? And this is where it gets tense. If it's not already tense, this is where it gets tense for people. Because man as the source, that's more approachable than man as the authority, right? That feels like, in the worst of circumstances, you are not safe because men are above you, but they're not trustworthy, right?
Yeah.
And that has been borne out over and over again in human history. It's being borne out right now as we speak, right? That's not God's design. That's not what he wants for his daughters. He doesn't want them to be hurt. He doesn't want men to abuse whatever masculinity, whatever gift of masculinity has been given to them, whatever gift of authority may have been given to them. He doesn't want men to abuse that and dominate. Like, that's evil. So moving into Genesis 2, the roles are delineated. But before any of that happens, there's a problem. There's something that is not good in creation. And woman, is the solution to that problem.
Wait a minute. So what you're telling me is, contrary to popular belief, women are the solution and not the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
It says it in the Bible.
It says it in the Bible, essentially, right? Like, it's not good that
Why isn't that verse like plastered all over? I should have a coffee cup.
It's not good that man should be alone.
Yeah. And then on one side,
yeah,
quote the Bible. On the other side, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Yes.
May present the solution.
Loneliness is the problem. Adam doesn't have a mate, and women are the solution, right? Like, there is, God says very specifically, it's not good that man should be alone. So I'm going to make for him a helper.
Uh-oh.
And so the word helper starts to be a problem.
I know where this is going.
Okay. But here's the thing. Again, another shocking and surprisingly encouraging thing. The word in Hebrew, ezer kenego, means helper. Ezer means helper, and kenego means eye to eye. Equal. So what's kind of amazing, right, is the story itself bears this out. It's not that Eve is taken from Adam's foot, so she's below him. It's not that Eve is taken from his head or his hair, his luscious locks, which is why you guys have great hair. Great hair day today, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
And every day. So she's not above him either. Where's she taken from?
His side.
Yeah, she's taken from here. She's the eye-to-eye helper or protector, because the word ezer, it doesn't just mean like administrative assistant or secretary or stewardess or something, right? Like, it means help in times of trouble. Because we know that because later on in Scripture, the word ezer is applied to God himself as help, as protection, as safety, right? Women have this incredible gift, this incredible role to play out as this walled city that protects those they love. That's incredible. And men, I think if we take seriously the gift that we are both equal, side to side, eye to eye, equal to one another, and because we're obviously different, like men and women are obviously different, if we take that seriously and understand that, no, our status is equal before God. We reflect God equally in the world, and we have been given the gift of doing different things to encourage and affirm and uplift the whole, to become one. And that images the triune God, who is also three in one, right? The community of male and female together images God, just as individuals image God as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to something that you said about the differences.
Yeah.
But equal.
Yeah.
To me, that feels like it puts a whole different perspective on feminine, masculine dynamic.
Sure.
And it really takes power away from, use the word weaponize.
Yeah.
I think about things like competition or, struggle for authority and power and the struggle for equality. When you think about it in biblical terms.
Yeah.
That the design was for us to be equal, but the design was also for us to be different.
Yeah. The design was for us to be in harmony. So if you know anything about music, so when two notes are in harmony together, they aren't the same note being played. That wouldn't sound harmonious. It would just sound like the same note being played, right? So we're not made up of one gender or one sex. We're made up of two in harmony by God's design so that the music we play is beautiful. It's not the same note being played. It's the root note, the source, and the third, the thing that gives it body and roundedness and wholeness and beauty. God's design is harmony.
How can you argue that?
It makes sense.
And why push against it? Why it's peaceful and easy?
Because women are easily hurt. Because I could lift you with one arm. And that is inherently terrifying when you can't trust that I'm not going to do that because I'm selfish and seeking my own things out of your body, right? Like, that's what it is. That's the fear. There is a pure weaponization of masculinity that feels like an attack and is an attack. And it comes from selfishness, and it comes from all the ways a man can hurt a woman. And that was never God's design. And what officially, for the record, pisses me off is that churches use the same language as we're using today, but twists it in such a way that women are harmed by the idea of harmonious complementarity. They're harmed by the language that gets used from the pulpit and from churches because it's used uncritically. It doesn't address what is real in this world, and it never touches the idea of equality, of this, right? It just says, nope, there's a hierarchy. You're less than me because I can pick you up with one arm. It's trash, it's frightening, and it ultimately contributes to the hurt that women experience. And that's not God's design. And it's not right.
We're getting equality all wrong. We're getting inequality all wrong. Like, that's the message. And there are words in the Bible that were twisted that got us here.
Yeah.
And you're setting the record straight.
Yeah.
I don't want to water that down with bullshit.
Yeah.
Because that's a really important message. This conversation, I'm learning something. And if I'm learning something, somebody else is learning something.
Yeah.
Because I'm a woman. I've been discriminated against.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not suffering from it,
Right.
but it's happened.
Sure.
And I've been confused about what the Bible says about the hierarchy or lack thereof
Yeah.
between men and women.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
It's my ignorance on this topic.
Yeah.
So, hearing Genesis, the very, very, very beginning of everything and anything that matters, to hear how the beginning of our journey as human beings on earth came from a place of men and women and equality, and down to the details of the words used in the original language and the intent behind them, is a really powerful message.
It's refreshing.
It's refreshing.
Yeah, because it means that God doesn't prefer one over the other, which is very scripturally sound.
And so I ask myself, what do I do with this information, right? I've been enlightened. I have new information about men and women.
Yeah.
Like, I know the truth.
Yeah.
I know the truth.
Okay. What's the truth?
The truth is there's not a hierarchy of men over women.
Right.
The truth is I'm not here to service men, to make them feel comfortable, to
Yeah.
to put their needs above mine.
Correct.
That's not my purpose.
Right.
And being a helper, those are the words in the Bible.
Hmm.
But my English definition of helper is not the original language's definition of helper.
That is
I know
100%
that now.
correct.
And it's important for me to know
You're
the
not
truth.
my airline stewardess.
I'm not.
You're not bringing me Biscoff cookies and coffee.
I'm not. I'm not taking your meeting notes. I'm not. I mean, we're getting into like stereotypical gender roles in the workplace,
Right.
but it's important. How I use this too is my partner in life, they need to be on the same page with that.
Yep.
It's important that my partner knows the truth. It's important that I know the truth.
Yep.
How can we be faithful in our relationship? How can we have that, the three of us, you described it so eloquently earlier.
God, you, and him. Yeah.
How could we have that and be true to how God designed that if we don't know the truth about what that's supposed to be?
Yeah. 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 Because you'll break human relationships away from what God intended. Right? And, something you said was really important, and it made me think of Genesis 3. This is the place where the human story goes wrong, because the serpent speaks to Eve, misleads her, tempts her to do the thing that God didn't want any of the humans to do yet, which is to take from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, tov and ra, good and bad, and eat from it, which is it's essentially saying, like, there is wisdom that you will need to know eventually that you don't need to know right now because you're safe in my arms here in this beautiful garden. You don't need this yet. You can eat from any other tree, including the tree of life, which apparently they didn't. The tree of life being they can go to God and receive this pure and full life forever. Like, the test was, which tree are you going to choose? You're going to choose the life that flows from God, the life of the vine, right? Or are you going to take something that you're not ready for? And what you said was really beautiful, because when that happens, when Eve takes from the tree and shares it with Adam, and they do the thing that God doesn't want to do, they step into rebellion against the command of God, but they also disconnect themselves from the source of life at that point. They run and they hide from God, right? God comes to them and says, "Cursed is the ground because of this act. And cursed are you, the serpent, who tempted my people away from me," essentially is what he's saying. But we now live in a world that has been cursed or defined correctly. the curse is defining what has now happened because the humans have disconnected themselves from the source of life and have pursued the only other thing you pursue when you do that is death. So they have pursued their own best thoughts, which are not God's, and that only leads to death. So God cursing the ground, the serpent, is a definition then of what truly is. The serpent is cursed because God himself is going to go deal with the serpent's offspring by the offspring of the woman. Genesis 3:15 is one of my favorite verses. It's called the proto-evangelion, which means the first gospel. So because the serpent tempts the woman and the man away from what God originally wanted, God says the offspring of the woman will be struck on the heel. God is saying to the serpent, the snake-like creature, you will strike his heel and he will crush your head. It's called the first gospel because we understand that there was someone who had his feet pierced, right? And that when his feet were pierced, and also his hands, and also his side, and I'm sure there's a side reference there because Eve was taken out of Adam's side and Jesus' side was pierced, that in that act of God's voluntary death on the cross, the serpent strikes him, but God crushes the head of the serpent, meaning all of that sin that the serpent encouraged is forgiven. And all the death that pays for the sin that flows out of rebelling against God and saying no to his commands, and I want to do my own thing, male and female, all of us are set free from the bonds of death. Because if the author of life is crucified, death can't stop him. He's the living God. He comes back out again. And that's exactly what the story says. That's exactly what happens. So both men and women are set free. Creation itself is destined to be redeemed and fixed, and creation itself is going to be refined in the end. That's Revelation 21. Everything is set free, and in Genesis 3:15, you get the very first mention of God entering to fix the problem that just got started in that moment on behalf of men and women. There's this Eastern Orthodox idea that comes from Genesis 3:15 that says that specifically is based on the offspring of the woman, right? So we think about Mary and Jesus. Jesus is literally the offspring of the woman, not Joseph. Mary and the Holy Spirit who overshadows her, right? So he is the offspring of the woman. And sure enough, his heel is struck, his feet are pierced, and in that striking, he crushes the head of the serpent and the machinations of death itself. He sets all people free from the bonds of death and from sin through forgiveness. The Eastern Orthodox idea is that, like, the woman in Genesis took from the tree, gave it to her husband. Both sinned. But Mary faithfully has the fruit of her womb come into the world. And knowing that her son is going to die, right? Jesus knowing that he himself is going to die. The fruit of Mary's womb goes back up onto the tree by voluntary decision. The fruit of Mary's womb, she gives her son over to God's will, and Jesus himself is submissive to God the Father's will, which is for the fruit of her womb to hang back up on the tree, setting everybody free, right? Because of that act, because of the faithfulness of it, everybody is saved, or can be if they want to be. It's this beautiful, harmonious thing.
See you getting emotional.
Shut up. Leave me alone. It's beautiful. I love it. And it's tragic, and it just works. Like, it just fits, you know?
Well, it's the curse. And what you just described was reversing the curse. Is that a thing?
Jesus reverses the curse.
Yeah. That beautiful thing that you just described was Jesus reversing the curse.
Yeah. The fruit goes back on the tree.
But the curse is still real, right? The curse is still, I'm not cursed, you are not cursed, but the curse exists.
We live under the effects of it.
We live under the effects of the curse.
And we can choose not to, I think.
Sure. I mean, the toiling, that's referring to work, to labor, right? To
that's
your occupation, your
the
job.
Yeah, that's the male side of it, right? Like the man will toil on ground that doesn't produce anything worth eating, and to make any food come out of the ground to provide for his family, he's going to have to, by the sweat of his brow, really work hard to make food appear on the table. And that makes me think of Jesus rolling back the burden and saying, "Take my yoke upon you. My burden is easy and my yoke is light." What a novel idea to take Jesus seriously and say, what if it's true that I feel burdened in this and this and this and this and this, but I could just take him up on his offer because his burden is easy and his yoke is light. And then maybe everything else that I'm working on or toward or for reduces in stress level because I've got the real yoke, the real burden, which is to follow Christ, to love God, and to love my neighbors. What if that's the real burden, and that's burden enough for all of us, and everything else falls under the auspice of the greatest command and taking Jesus' word seriously? So that's for dudes. What about dudettes?
Bodacious dudettes.
What about them bodacious dudettes, right? Radical. So
What's our curse?
So the female curse, the female side of the result of the curse, if I say it too quickly, it'll be like, we got cursed. We didn't. We live under the effects of the curse. We weren't cursed explicitly. So the female side of living under the curse is your desire will be for your husband, but he will rule over you. Now, this is where even more problems have come about, right? Because people have read that and thought that that was a prescription for how to live, as opposed to saying, no, this is an effect of the curse. This wasn't God's design. This wasn't what he wanted. This was because we stepped outside of what God wanted. This is the consequence, the result. So your desire will be for your husband. Essentially what that means is that women will desire to integrate and enmesh and twist and control. Out of desire, yes, but also control. It's both. It's all of those things. It's not one simple thing.
It's a dysfunctional way of having a relationship.
It's a massively dysfunctional way of having a relationship. But he's going to naturally rule. So men have the choice. They can be domineering shits, or they can give up entirely. And we see marriages do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You go domineering shit, or you give up entirely and you don't try at all because you're defeated. Because women are still living under the effects of the curse, where their desire is for this relationship, but holy shit, is it getting twisted pretty easily. And now there's control and there's bitterness and there's, why can't you do this for me or that for me? You're not meeting my needs. You're not seeing this. You're not seeing that. We can dominate or we can give up. And that's how the relationship gets twisted from your side. From our side, also we see this very clearly in relationships. Man works his fingers to the bone, comes home and has no time, no energy to love his family well. Is that not the curse?
Oh,
Do we not see it everywhere?
everywhere.
You see it everywhere.
It's never referred to it as the effects of the curse, though.
No, it's the curse, though. We're living in a world that is fallen and broken and not God's ideal. And we don't have to.
We don't have to. We don't have to.
Yeah.
And with
Jesus
this,
sets us free from that bullshit. His burden is easy. His yoke is light. And think about how he sets right his relationships with women. Like, think about how he interacts with women. He elevates them. He takes them from a lowly status and sits with them and talks with them at a well. Or he allows them to follow along with him and supply the needs for his ministry. He starts setting them right too and giving them the chance to do what they were made to do, which is to create the walled city of protection, of help. That's what they do. He's giving them the chance to be redeemed. And he's giving, obviously, men the chance as well to be redeemed, right? Through a very enculturated lens, through the Jewish mindset, absolutely. All of that is very still at play in the gospel. Societal expectations and hierarchies. But then Jesus comes in like a radical and starts to bring the mountains low and the valleys raised up. He starts to equal the playing field for everybody. And everybody gets a chance to walk with him. So we don't have to live into the curse. We don't have to play that game. We can follow him and walk a different path. Thank you for joining our conversation today. Give this podcast a like and subscribe to keep up with the episodes that we drop weekly. And if you don't like us, tell your friends about how much you don't like us so that they will hate listen to us. Right?
who wouldn't like us? I mean, even if
A
you
lot
don't,
of people.
even if you don't like us,
Even if you don't like us.
because you're not everybody's cup of tea.
Boy, that's the truth. Story of my life, guys.
Okay, so if you like us, great, you know what to do. If you don't like us, sorry it didn't work out, but you can still tell people about how much you didn't like us.
I like that you said sorry it didn't work out. I'm real sorry it didn't work out for you on this front. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. That's okay.